us
All right, everybody.
on the computer and trying to do
If I
everything.
could have your attention, please, we'll go ahead and
Ain't you
get going here.
Get yourself a new computer or get
We are
yourself
up
a new
and running.
account. Needless
So,
to say, I got a new
We
computer.
Get you going. Everybody, we'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. We have 2 items on our agenda today for our work session. We have our first item is our Planning Commission alternate applicant interview for Terry Ferris. And if you would like to come up and join us at the table.
Morning.
Welcome, Mr. Ferris. So if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in this position.
Okay, my name's Terry Ferris. We've been a resident of Montrose for about 5 years. We moved over here from the Front Range. We finally saw the light. And I'm a retired mechanical design engineer. My wife was a banker. And we both like the outdoors, skiing, biking, hiking, fishing, that sort of thing. But I'm interested.
Hold the mic a little closer.
I've had courses in architecture. I once wanted to be an architect, so I found out I didn't have enough money. I wanted to eat, so gave that up and went into engineering. But I've always been interested in design and art, parks, that sort of thing. And Montrose is the second largest city on the west. You could soon have the best, busiest airport on the west side. Montrose is set up to keep growing, and I don't know at what rate, but it's going to be a substantial rate as people move over here from the east side and come into the state from outside. So I'm interested in what kind of development is going to go on to keep this town with the atmosphere it is. I've been attracted to Montrose for years. When I used to do a lot of climbing, and we would come through Montrose and check this place out. And I've had friends who were gunners and like the shooting ranges here, that sort of thing, and just the general atmosphere of the place over here. We're constantly surprised at how friendly the people have been and helpful. And it's a good group of people around here, and I'd like to keep it that way. So there is a housing problem going on here as more and more people move into here and need affordable housing. It's out of sight on the Front Range, and it's getting that way over here too as the prices keep going. You're getting more work over here, and you'll have more and more people moving over here trying to work. You can find the retired people and the people who just want to move here and set up a different lifestyle. I think, as I see it,
Pardon me.
my time. As I see it, Montrose needs to stay on top of these things and set up development guidelines. Some of the developments that I see going on here remind me of what I've seen of the California developments back in the 50s, 60s, that sort of thing. And those things are great for temporary housing, 10 years or so, but then you're going to wind up with a lot of shacks, poorly developed places. I found, and I've been on several committees that design review committees, that sort of thing, over on the east side. And you'll find that the developers promise you anything, but unless you nail them down, they're just gonna go do their thing. So I think a real oversight needs to be done on the development that goes on around here. And I don't know what the philosophy is of, and structures of what you want to do with Montrose, but we have a chance to really be on top of this stuff and set up guidelines and oversight for years to come here. And once the principles have been set up, it's a lot easier to follow this stuff. So I'm interested in what kind of philosophy you're going to have here for the development of Montrose. And I'd like to be part of this sort of thing.
Okay. Any questions from council? Mr. Glassbell, any questions? I guess.
Can you hear us, Doug?
Can you hear us, Doug?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
We can hear you too now.
No questions?
No, I have no questions.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you taking the time to come in and talk to us.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much.
All right, moving on to our second discussion item. And this is Public Works Manager Jim Scheid is going to tell us about the fuel contract amendment with Parish Oil. Jim?
Yep, thank you, council. So yeah, our first item today is an amendment to our fuel contract with Parish Oil. So we're about 2.5 years into this contract of a 3-year contract with them, and they came to us recently with a request to amend some of the fees associated with their contract. Normally, we don't see this kind of thing. Once we are locked into a contract rate, those don't change. And I think with some of the changes just in the world, with when it comes to delivery of fuel, some of those fees have changed on the parish side. So they've come to us with this request because over the last several months, they've actually have lost money to deliver us fuel. And out of respect for us and trying to honor their contract, they haven't said anything so far because they want to fulfill their contract and they want to maintain a good relationship with the city because they've delivered us fuel for a long time. But have come forth with, hey, we need some help. We are literally losing money to get you guys fuel, which would mean amending our contract. There are, when they bid, that's based on the market rate of the fuel on that day, and that's so it's, you know, everybody that bids has the same price. That's the market rate. But then on top of that, they have delivery. They have a surcharge for delivery, and then a fee on top of that. And it's usually in very small percentage. It's in a couple cents per gallon. And that's what they're asking to amend, to increase the amount of their surcharge or their delivery fee when it comes to bringing us fuel. It would mean amending our existing contract to increase that amount. I guess we are recommending that we allow this amendment just because of we know there's been many changes when it comes to delivery of anything, but especially fuel throughout the country. Now, as far as comparing their increase compared to the bids we received back in 2020, this increase would still be less than their next nearest competitor pricing in 2020. So we would not be exceeding what was previously bid by anybody else. So in that way, it's still a fair request. But it would allow Parish to fulfill the rest of the contract through March and feel comfortable that they're gonna at least be profitable between now and March. And in March, we would then rebid the fuel contract as we do every 3 years. So that's upcoming anyway. One thing we did consider as part of this is that we could rebid that now. Just end our contract, rebid out right now, and not go the remainder of the fuel contract. Considering that, though, I think now is not a great time to rebid our fuel contract. I think now is probably the worst, and we know that the prices we get would be higher than they are now. Even with this increase, everybody that would bid on a fuel contract would bid at a much higher rate. So we feel it's best to allow this amendment to the contract, get through March, and rebid at that time.
I was gonna say, all of these prices listed in our packet, this is, the increase for gasoline is 0.1 cent per gallon. And for diesel,
It's 11 cents.
I'm sorry, 11 cents, I
Yep,
mean.
yep, for gasoline and diesel.
And 27 cents is where they're proposing, and it was at 16 cents.
That's correct, yep.
So the increase isn't all that large compared to the current fuel prices.
Yeah, and these are on top of the market rate. So the rate of the gallon of fuel that we buy, depending on what it is, let's say it's $3, right? Then these fees are added to that market rate. So if it's $3 today, we would pay $3.11 for the freight, and then another, 1 cent on top of that for their the fee on top of that. So there's a surcharge and a fee associated with it. One of them's 1 cent, one of them's 11 cents.
So when we have a contract, the contract says we'll pay market rate. So as fuel prices have changed since we entered this contract, we are paying more for the fuel as fuel. Okay, so
Correct.
that fluctuates.
Yes,
The freight bid, that
Is
piece
fixed.
shouldn't fluctuate, and they're
Right.
asking for it to fluctuate.
that's correct.
It's really interesting, because if their prices went down, I don't necessarily know they'd come to us and say, hey, we've been able to save you money. I mean, what's the point of a contract?
That's true. They,
I mean,
they
that's-
wouldn't, right? If for some reason their surcharge related to fuel went down, they wouldn't come back and say, hey, we owe you money. So that's why it is a request, and we can say no. They will likely request to get out of the contract at
I
that
think
point.
Barbara raises a good point, and just to play devil's advocate for a minute, and I'm not saying I wouldn't support this, but I think if we look at it from the big picture point of view, we've got a lot of other contracts out there. Are we setting a precedent by doing this, regardless of the incremental change in what we're going to pay? Is it a precedent that we should be setting when we've got others out there who are become aware of this, and they come in and, play the hardship role? And I understand it is legitimately a hardship role, but should we, as the city, be amending our contracts midstream in order to accommodate the economic situation? Again, I don't say we should or we shouldn't, I'm just kind of throwing it out for discussion.
How is the contract written in that if we didn't renegotiate the contract, you said they'd want out of it? What are the clauses that would allow either party to just get out of the contract prior to March of '23?
I guess
Jim, ma'am.
Go ahead, yeah.
So I have the contract up right here. The contractor may terminate the agreement at any time without prejudice to any other right or remedy upon giving the city 30 days written notice. So they don't need cause. They can get out of it for whatever
Okay.
reason they want.
How much notice?
30 day.
So then that puts us in the position of rebidding this in a month from now, and we'll end up paying more anyway.
Correct. Yep.
I think that's
Yeah.
important to recognize, that, like, what our options are, this, that if we don't renegotiate the current contract with them, they will most likely cancel the contract,
Yeah.
which they can.
And they don't want to do that either. They're, like I said, they like working for the city. They've provided fuel for a long time. So they're trying to maintain that relationship without going out of business, one, right? But also trying to make it fair to the city, So they're trying to walk that line of what's fair.
That makes a really big difference to my decision, because if they had to deliver us, if they had to stay in the contract to March of '23 regardless, then that would be different. If they can't, we say no to this request, and they just cancel in 30 days' notice.
That's true, but it's a little bit of a gun being held to your head too.
But it is how the contract's written. I mean,
No, oh, no, I mean, they can get on it. What's the actual financial impact?
Not significant, right? So in the overall price of fuel, right now, we're, at the $5 range per gallon. And this would be an increase of 11 cents per gallon. So budget-wise, it will likely not have any effect. We won't see any of our internal funds that, we pay for our fuel through our fleet internal fund, and none of our budgets are expected to be exceeded because of this. That's 11 cents on approximately a $5 gallon price.
but how many gallons do you think we'll be buying between, any estimate between now and March? Like, I think that would give us the number that this is gonna cost us.
in gallons, I would expect we're gonna, about 5,000 gallons of diesel. We get 5,000 gallons in a delivery, so we order in bulk, and I expect we'll have one more this year.
This contract.
This year, so I guess actually two more before March. So I'm not sure if I'm answering that completely, but I would say, also another way to look at it is our overall budget. So we pay in total fuel between diesel and gasoline, about 600,000 total on a year.
Okay.
So that might be another way to look at it. We have 6 months of this contract left.
So it's about $1,100 if you do the 10,000 gallons times the 11 cent.
Right, and that's
for
on the
that sec-
diesel,
For that section.
right, and that's on the diesel
Diesel,
part.
yeah.
And then we also
So
buy,
$1,100 on overall budget-wise, we're looking at 600,000.
What about non-diesel? Yeah.
It's a little less. If it was 10,000, maybe call it 8,000 for gas. It's a little bit less.
okay.
And that increase is about the same.
So if we're buying an additional 18,000 gallons of gas and an 11 cents increase, we're talking about just under $2,000 is what they're saying. It
And we would cost us far more than that if we renegotiated the contract at this point.
Yeah,
Because of the
we-
variance in fuel prices and delivery.
Yep,
So we'd end up paying a lot more.
Possibly,
that's what we
possibly, but
suspect.
not-
Now,
yeah.
that 1,900 that you just gave up, was that for the rest of the contract?
That's just the increase.
For the
Yeah.
rest of the contract?
Yeah,
roughly, yeah.
And we have to renegotiate
March.
the contract in March of 2023 anyway,
correct.
so.
With all of that information, I would be comfortable renegotiating the contract. Mostly understanding they could cancel it with 30 days' notice.
And they could still do that anyway, right? In 30 days from now, they could say, well, this is not enough.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to cancel and renegotiate.
And at this point, with us negotiating in good faith, I think that puts us on a good footing. So it's something to definitely keep in our minds. Any other questions? Any questions from you, Doug?
I support what Barbara was covering there too.
All right. Excellent, thank you.
Barbara, I have a question. I just want to make sure I understood you. You say you want to renegotiate the contract? Because that
Well,
was
we
the
don't
last
make
thing I
any-
heard you say.
I mean, yeah,
Okay, all
yeah,
right.
I would be comfortable with.
Amending
Amending
the
the
contract,
contract.
not renegotiating.
Okay, that's what I was asking. Did you
Oh.
want
Yes,
to?
I understood and by the way, I'm kind of a little negligent. I didn't recognize and introduce our new city attorney, Mr. Ben Morris.
Hello.
Welcome to the
Welcome back.
crazy house, I guess.
Great to be back.
Yeah, we're really happy to have you here and really excited to see you kind of participating with the process.
I appreciate the distinction there. We're not making a motion or anything. I think what I'm saying is that I would recognize and support staff's decision to work with them.
We understand the validity of the proposal.
Especially
So
right
you'll
now
bring
with
it
the
to us as an
volatility
action, an
of
item to.
Yeah,
Of,
that'll come to the next
in
council.
gas and
2
diesel
weeks.
We'll
prices.
be bringing
I just
forward
filled my truck up and it cost me $120.
All right, well, thank you, Jim, and we'll move on to our next item, is the City Hall renovation contract award recommendation, and this is also City Public Works Manager Jim Scheid.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, so this is for the renovation of what will be the new City Hall, which is the former Wells Fargo building at 400 East Main. So we talked about this project a little bit recently in the asbestos abatement contract that went out recently, but this is requesting the authorization of the 1.5 million, which is the total funds we would need to renovate the space. And that actually does include the asbestos abatement that was already awarded, but I'll kind of get to how it's broke down here in a minute. So the reason this is coming now is because of the award of the CMGC contract that goes with it. And so at this point, that contract would not include the GMP amount. It's for pre-con services and basically signing up the contractor. In this case, we're recommending FCI constructors for that CMGC. So we've used this approach on a couple projects. One of them was the PD project, and in that case, it was mainly geared towards getting those bid packages out in time to kind of get ahead of price increases, which it worked really well in that case. We also did this at the amphitheater, which allowed us to construct that in one construction season. And this one's also similar in that it's, just compressed schedule. We're trying to get this project completed as quickly as we can, and so we can move in about February is what our timeline looks like right now. And so that's where the CMGC approach comes in, that it allows us to work with our contractor and our design team together, keeping our design on a budget as we go, so we're not having to redesign it at any point. And it also allows us to sign up our general contractor at a GMP, our guaranteed maximum price, at the time our design is complete. And so it helps us accelerate the process. And this CMGC is only a part of that puzzle. So another piece is the asbestos abatement, which we've already started. That was already awarded, and they're working starting this week, actually. So that's another piece to it. The roof replacement is also something that we are contracting out directly. We had a pre-bid meeting last week. So some of these things we're getting started on ahead of time, even before we have our CMGC on board, to keep that overall timeline in play. So there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle of keeping this schedule together. But all of those pieces, including asbestos, are all included in this 1.5 million authorization. And so I tried to keep it all associated with this project. Instead of separating asbestos one piece and roof one piece, that this 1.5 that I'm talking about today includes everything associated with this project, even though some of it has already been awarded, like the asbestos abatement. So the CMGC portion, we issued an RFQ-P, which is a request for qualifications and proposal. And we had 2 applicants, both of them very well qualified. It was FCI Constructors and Stryker and Company. We participated in interviews with them where they kind of review their project approach, their pre-con services, the team they have assigned to the project, and just their general overall approach. And then they present that to us in kind of an owner's meeting style of interview. And after interviews, they were both considered fairly equal in the qualification side of it. Their approach and team, both of them were very good. So in that sense, they were considered quite equal. But then we open pricing, and in this case, FCI was significantly cheaper in price. And so we get a GC cost from them, which is their the price they will charge us to run the project irregardless of the overall project amount. So it's insurance, bonding, supervision, things like that would be done on the project no matter how much the project cost. And that's a fixed price. And then also we look at their fee, which is the cost of the work plus this fee, and they give us that in a percentage. And once we get through design, then we reach to a GMP where they'll say the overall cost of the project is this, and then these GCs and fee are applied to that overall cost of the work. And so that's all fixed now. So as part of this proposal, we're able to get that GC cost and the fee now, and then when we get to a GMP, that's when they're applied. And so FCI was significantly lower cost. And so I think because of that, it leaned us in that direction to select FCI for this CMGC award. And so FCI they would begin their pre-con portion of the contract right away, as soon as it's authorized. They would work with Blythe, which is our design team on the project, with pricing where we're at now currently with very little design completed, and then they would provide pricing updates through different milestones of the design, all the way up into the time where design is complete, and we would then do a GMP contract with FCI for the construction work. And speaking of Blythe, so they are our design team, as I mentioned. And as far as the work that FCI would be performing, it would be related to the interior layout of the building and making it functional for City Hall to work in there. So security, ADA, accessible restrooms, things like that. It would be kind of the scope that Blythe is designing and FCI would be performing. Another piece that Blythe is designing is conceptual layouts of the exterior of the building. Now, that part's not budgeted yet and not included in the scope for construction, but at least Blythe would be providing some concepts of what the outside of the building could look like, giving us really kind of three options on the kind of look and feel, number of windows, number of doors, that kind of stuff of what the exterior looks like. And that's pretty exciting, I think, we'll get to have some options of what that could look like, and then help us budget for that in the future. And whichever conceptual option we may like, it'll help us to kind of put an amount to what that would be needed to be budgeted for in the future.
So some of the design for the exterior is included in this 1.5?
It is.
But the budgeting for that actual renovation is not part of that?
That's true, yes. Yep.
Good check.
Yep.
And
So,
as we get these design elements, we're gonna be getting updates on those so we can see kind of what the scope of work is and what our project is gonna look like?
yeah, for sure. We have, kind of typical milestones in design. So, design development, or schematic design, those are times when it's good to bring forth as a presentation. So at any one of those, I can bring them forth and do an update, kind of like we're going to do today about the council chambers update. I can do that at several milestones throughout design.
So the,
I guess I have a slight problem with this because the scope of work, to come up with the $1.5 million and not have specific details as to what they're doing or how they're doing it, and then the $750,000 for the roof and the asbestos abatement. Who's going to be managing that? Is that going to be the city staff?
Yeah, so I would manage that. Those came together as estimates that I've put together from, there's several pieces that are included in the owner provided, and that's the asbestos abatement, the roof replacement. There'll be some furniture added into the project. Those are owner provided items throughout the construction project. And those, I'm estimating, are about 700 to 750. And then the construction portion of it, which is the interior construction work, the restroom remodel or rebuild, mechanical system improvements, those things would be in the contractor's scope, which we've estimated so far without any design, we've estimated that should also come in very close to that same amount.
To me, as a contractor, it just seems inappropriate for us to be providing funds without plans or specifications, with just a drawing like this, and no proposal. So how does a contractor walk in and look and say, okay, this is, we're going to have to put a wall here. How are we going to do a material list for this and stuff? Are we just saying, okay, let's say the whole project's going to be $1,500,000 and we're shy the exterior of the building?
So they haven't priced any construction yet. They've only given us a fee associated with the construction. So
we're still considering $1.5 million for construction costs, and we don't even really know what they are. The fees that they're talking about is just what the contractor is going to charge to give us an idea of the cost. Is that what you're saying?
But now that we will design it to that budget. So that's where FCI would help the design team to stay within that budget. We know that we're looking in the $700,000 to $750,000 range for construction costs. So FCI works with Blythe to make sure our design doesn't exceed that.
So the alternative than doing it like this with a CMGC contract would be doing a hard bid, coming up, first paying someone to come up with exactly what it should look like, paying for that, and then going out to a hard bid and saying, what is it gonna cost you to build this?
Yes.
And this plan so that would be the alternative.
Mm-hmm.
This plan, going with the CMGC, allows us a little more flexibility and usually ends up saving money, does it not?
Yes, and time. So if we were to do the approach you mentioned first, kind of the hard bid, getting through design, we would have to almost be guessing whether we're on budget or not through that design process. The design team would do what they thought looked the best, but we would not really know where we're at budget-wise until it goes out for bid, and then we get several bids in, and we're kind of stuck with that. Then here's our design. Then we are almost a little bit surprised in what we're going to open up on bid day, and and then we'd be tied to that. It's kind of the more traditional route for design, bid, build.
Right, but that's the alternative, where
That's an
you do know
alternative, yeah.
exactly what you're paying for. I think this is a great plan instead of a hard bid, because it does allow us some more flexibility. It allows us to save time and money.
Yeah, it worked really
Even
well.
though we don't know today that this is going to include an 8-foot wall here, we do know that it is that we're gonna work with a construction manager and a contractor at risk to get us the end result.
Yeah, and it worked very well. Amphitheater is a great example. I think it's somewhat similar in scale. The PD project is quite its own animal, right? It's a lot bigger. But the amphitheater is very similar in a way, and we did the same approach there, and it worked very smoothly. I think it was a great way to do that. That if we had hard bid that out, that project would have been very different and not completed in the same timeline. We wouldn't have been able to start even bidding that out until the design was done. And so that was just different in timeline-wise than what we're planning on doing here.
So the other advantage here is that accelerated timeline,
Yeah.
because we do have that time frame. We want to be over into that building by January, February, and this accelerates that timeline to allow us to accomplish that by incorporating the design and all of the other construction package in one easy-to-handle package.
That's right,
But
yes.
I'm comfortable with the fact that if the experts on our staff are telling us we have two alternatives, as Barbara pointed out, and you're telling us the benefits of one over the other, then I accept the fact that there are benefits to doing it this way as opposed to the only other alternative. Why would we spend more time and more money to go a different route?
Yeah.
Wouldn't make sense to me.
Any other
I do have
questions?
one question. Just with respect to the fact that FC Constructors was, you said significantly less than the Stryker. Significantly less when taking the local contractor into account?
Yeah, so we do even consider that slightly. In this type of proposal being qualifications-based, that the local preference isn't, it's not like a hard bid, right? So, but we do still do look at it to make sure we're, using that as a reference. So if it were to be applied, Stryker would been given a 5% advantage, and FCI would have been given a 3% advantage, so the difference would have been a 2%. But in projecting the overall project costs, so we apply what we assume will be the price of the construction and the timeline associated with their GCs, we're definitely looking at more than the difference of 2%, probably more in the 7 to 10% difference. So more than our local preference would have applied.
Thanks.
Any other questions? We finally got Doug back. We lost our Zoom feed for a moment, so we kind of had everybody drop out. Doug, are you up to speed? Can you hear us? I'm not sure if he can hear us or not. Doug, can you hear us?
I can hear you now.
Okay, well, did you have any questions for Jim about the renovation of the former Wells Fargo building?
No, I'm fine with everything.
Right. All right, thank you. And we'll move on to general city council discussion. And when we were talking earlier, Ed and I were just kind of talking quickly, and I was completely,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I was,
we got going sideways on our thoughts, and then I
yeah, and
apologize.
when I relooked at this, then
Yeah, once
I
I relooked
realized
at
that
it and
there
started
was.
digging into it.
Yeah.
I wanted to give a big shout out and a thank you to the city staff for the wonderful 4th of July parade and this amazing event we had at the Montrose Amphitheater, the concerts. I got so many positive comments from people that some people were just amazed that we have an amphitheater that nice in Montrose. And just the staff worked their tails off until 2 o'clock in the morning, some people, helping finish up and clean up on that. And I just think it's a real kudo to our staff, that the dedication and the professionalism that they exhibit and going above and beyond what their job descriptions and requirements are. And I wanted to say thank you personally to everybody on our staff. Excellent job.
I second that.
Yeah, I had an opportunity yesterday morning to work the parade route with the staff and interacted with some public works guys as well, and thank them, and police department and our OBT team. So it was really a group effort. And also it was a great weekend to really hear from the community, because I think, at least I was out there with my name tag and my city shirt, and people said, you know, not just thank you for a great weekend of activities, but they said they really like what they're seeing overall. They like seeing the new streets, and they like seeing the blacktop, and they like seeing the extensions of Woodgate, Hillcrest, and they really feel like, I heard a lot of kudos about what the city is doing overall this weekend. So not just what they were sitting there watching, but in overall.
Yeah, I heard the same things, particularly out at the amphitheater last night. People were very positive.
I think we lost Doug again.
I'm sure Doug would echo our comments.
He did.
I'm sure he would say he was sorry he missed
He was
it,
sorry he missed it.
and thank everyone.
He's visiting grandkids, so I don't know how sorry he would be. But
Sure,
yeah.
yeah.
All right, any other council comments? All right, moving on to staff comments. We're talking about the city council chamber redesign and technology update. Obviously, the technology has a different slant on things at this moment. We're, yes,
There he is.
Greg is tearing his hair out as we speak.
Is this me?
Yep, what's our update on technology?
If you can get the mic to work.
I've got a floor plan up. I don't know if we can project that, Greg. I plugged in.
So, everything's different now, so to change inputs, we do this over here, and now we can see
There we go.
what
So
Jim is.
I can start us off, Greg, and then part of this will be AV and Greg related, but this project, we actually all met back in March to discuss this project in a little more detail than had been mentioned. I think last year this had came up initially, and then we met in March to talk through details with city council, PD, city clerk, all the different users of this dais mainly, and the idea was to reconstruct it in a more secure way. And through that design process, again, working with Blythe, because they're specialized in this type of layout and this type of work, we have come up, we got to this point basically. So taking everybody's concerns and everybody's needs of the space, this is where the new dais construction has brought us. So as you can see, the dais would rotate in this room to be more centered right on the arch in the middle. It would be bigger and allow a little more space up there, but then also a little more designated spaces on the sides. So you can kind of see the main seating area has 7 primary seats with an 8th that can be easily moved in for planning commission. And then the spaces next to it would be a city clerk seating area, and then a youth council on the other side. And then the pieces that are basically perpendicular to that would be for city staff when they're presenting, with 4 seats available, but also easy access to the seating areas on the side. So kind of like how this one's set up right now, this one over here would be the same way. So it'd be easy to access to a presentation point from either side. Right along the middle of the room, right here along the edge of the wood floor, would be a separator, like a barrier. Not so much in a security way, but more just a designation of space. So similar to the railing that's along the sides here, there would be one that comes across the front with an opening at the aisleway. Again, to separate space, so just showing that this is presentation space and council space, where this is seating space. So just an area designation more or
Does the
less.
seating space remain approximately the same size?
Yes, the seating space remains unchanged.
Is the court planning on using this space, or is there gonna be different court facilities?
Well, eventually there'll be different court facilities, but have to use it during the, until those facilities are available.
Yep.
And I do have a concern with this. I don't think we'd be able to do jury trials with this configuration, because you have to have the jury sitting, you know, kind of in the center of things, and with the, and normally where they sit is over here at this table. We have to see 12 people to select a jury at most. But my solution is that we just go off-site to do jury trials. We don't have that many of them.
Okay.
And the new
It would-
facility
excuse me,
would
it
be,
would work for our irregular, everyday dockets.
What were you gonna say about
I was
that?
just gonna say, it's probably about 3 years
Hmm.
to move into as a reminder to everyone, the old existing PD facility will be built out as the court, the new court area, and so that can be fully designed to modern standards. That would be about 3 years.
And that's the building within the building. So that building that we're looking at now, that new building, still has inside of it that old space that is just sitting there waiting to be the next step
Yep.
phase.
Yep,
Yep.
that was phase 2, and we promised the voters of 2A initiative, we wouldn't use 2A funds for the court remodel.
Okay.
So that'll have to be budgeted for design and then construction through our general fund.
Okay.
And that'll be in the new building?
It's in the existing PD building, but the entrance for it will come into the new public safety complex. And there'll be a wing going off into the court, and then the PD, and then the community room.
See, Ed,
So it is
the
the-
building's been built around the existing PD.
Oh, okay.
Let's call it the old PD now, so.
So.
I'm still calling it the old library.
So there's a space in the center of the, or so to speak, I don't know exactly where it's at.
Yeah.
The center.
Of,
Almost dead
Yeah,
center.
the PD is still utilizing their former space, which is built into the center of the building now.
okay. It's,
Yeah.
it's starting to click now,
Yeah, the
so.
other question, Jim, I have is, are we gonna be doing any renovations of any of these other rooms across here?
Not at this time, no.
Not at this time,
There's
so
no-
that's gonna be, all of this redesign and so on is just for this room
Just the
here with
dais.
the chamber, or dais,
Yeah.
and access to the doors, and security of that dais.
Yes.
Could you
Yeah.
explain a little bit about what that means?
So the height of it is one thing, it'll be a little taller than this one, just kind of more modern style of a dais, and it'll have ballistic rated panels inside it, same thing that we see in the lobby of the police department. Actually, a lot of them are leftover from what was used in the police department. The wings that come off of the dais and also the front radius piece will be ballistic rated, kind of offering a little security in some kind of an event.
And you've worked with PD on, because it's hard to see the details here, but you've worked with PD in terms of entrance and exit points and ways to get out of the building quickly if we
Yep.
needed to?
Yeah, in their position, that's something Blaine always mentions, is where he's at in the room, where's a safe place for him to be able to see everything without keeping his back to anybody coming in the room and that sort of thing. So, yeah, PD has been very involved in this thus far to make sure their concerns are addressed here too. Yeah.
What's
Will
our
we
time?
still be able to get out to the bathroom?
Yes, and
I'm still, that door's always been locked when I've tried, so I don't even have it.
so.
So as we move forward in this, we're gonna see, as we've put out to bid, that the bid process will actually delineate scope of work, what they're
Yeah.
gonna do for how much.
So in this project, this one is a true hard bid. So in this case, it's a smaller project. The design wasn't based on budget. The design was based on a need, right? So we had a functionable need we need to fix. And that's where the design came in first. We're done with design. And it's in a scale small enough that the schedule wouldn't have mattered, or it wouldn't have been any different. So we will hard bid this out, more to a traditional style. And put these out for bid, receive bids, and consider those.
What's our timing
separately.
on this?
We'll post this as an RFP this week. Their documents are ready to go. But this project also includes carpet and paint throughout the building. And that was budgeted actually as a separate project, but as this one came together, it definitely makes sense to do them together and kind of impact the building once rather than trying to separate those two into different projects. So there'll be approximately 3 months later this year that this building will be basically shut down. We'll have to relocate all of the different things that happen in here, and we're learning how complicated that is. So it sounds like a fun new dais project, but it's actually very complicated. There's a lot of high-profile uses of this space. And then, of course, the visitor center and the OBT staff, courts, of course, everybody is in this building now. So we're working on a plan to relocate those. We're looking at October through December of this year is kind of our time frame, and we will be able to hone that in better once we receive, once we can start working with the general contractor on, delivery times of all the different materials and their schedule. We're aiming at 3 months, but that can be slightly variable.
So are we looking at the new community room in the PD for city council meetings?
City council meetings, we're thinking we'll use the Centennial Room.
It's the old one.
Yeah, the old Camden.
That's basically,
So-
well, one of the things, we actually met with the judge and we walked kind of through the space and looked at some of the utility and some of the options. And we've had a lot of discussions about where would be the most utilized space, where is the easiest to set up for both functions long-term without disrupting the community use of the space. And so that's one of the reasons why we were talking about the Centennial Rooms, because we can kind of set up more of a
Permanent?
semi-permanent dais and structure that both courts and the council could use.
Well, I'm actually leaning toward the community room because it's gonna be closer to where our offices are.
That makes sense.
Then we wouldn't have to go back and forth, but once again, we'll have to go off-site to do jury trials.
Yeah, and we've discussed that we have certainly the ability to find a space that's better utilized, or better usefulness for that.
And then-
Even if we rent some of the space in one of the local hotels,
Yeah.
their meeting space at the Holiday Inn Express, for example.
Yeah.
So,
Another big part of this project is the AV upgrades. That's where maybe I'll hand it off to Greg to talk a little bit about some of them that are implemented now, and then also as we start to do this project, how they'll transition into the new dais.
Before we do that, though, is it set in stone that council has to meet in the Centennial Room, or is the community room still an option for them?
It is still an option. That's not set in stone yet. That's
Nothing is set in
something we've been working with Greg to just figure out the IT side of it and kind of coordinating with the other uses, courts and other uses of the space. So it's nothing set in stone.
So maybe when you're talking about the AV stuff, talk about that a little bit. Pros and cons of either space for council meetings if we're gonna use Zoom and stuff like that. So we-
Could I ask a question there? I know there was a lot of thought put into the safety of the council, but what about the safety of the community that comes to these council meetings? How was that addressed? Or was it? In other words, if somebody comes in and decides to shoot everybody in there, we're all protected, but just out of curiosity as to what was thought about, was
Sure.
anything like that thought about?
We've talked about this project as long as I've been here and prior, so it comes up every few years. And now with the just changing dynamic of the people of our society right now, there's a little more angst, there's more opportunity to do harm to governing bodies and government in general. There's a lot of threats through email that we all get at the city on a regular basis. The highest priority was protecting the governing body and the ability to carry on our governance of the city. And then we also looked at the overall users of the space. And the only way to really do anything, you can never make everyone safe 100%, but the only way to really provide an extra level of security to the general public using the space is to do metal detectors at the entrance. And it was talked about by the entire group several times over the last several years that we don't want to go that far because it sends the wrong message to our community, and it would probably seem a little bit overcautious in the eyes of our community members. Every community is different, but ours would probably, based on comments we've all gotten over the years, see that as overkill, and it's not a comfortable environment for the citizens to come in. It's very similar to the entry lobby to City Hall. We've talked about the current location over the years, but now the new location over at the Wells Fargo building. How do you make that secure for people when they come in without being overly
restrictive.
Yeah, putting
Unfriendly.
bulletproof glass in front of all of our customer service techs, for example. We're not gonna do that, because we don't think in our community that would be supported. So we have talked through all those things, we've looked at those options, and we've just chosen to go this route. And it seems to be, we've looked at other places around the state in different meeting rooms and those types of things. It's the most common way to do it, is to try to do that. If something were to happen in here, the citizens can also come up and hide behind the dais, and we would try to, protect them just like we would protect each other. But there's no way to really take a large group gathering, like in here, I think we have 90 seats.
I was just.
There's no way to make all of them safe.
Yeah, no, I was just interested in finding out if that conversation was held, and you answered that, that it was covered, so that's good.
Hopefully we'll never need it.
God willing.
I don't think we will, but.
All right.
So-
Anything else on that?
Anyway, I think we'll hand off to Greg, and he can talk a little bit about the AV upgrades.
Sure. The AV upgrades, we're still kind of working through some hiccups, as you can see. What spurred this, the old guts of the audio and video stuff that we used to pump out a broadcast was 15 to 17 years old. A lot of the stuff you couldn't replace. We had something go bad that was kind of an important piece, and this was before I joined, but they had to go on eBay to find an old piece to replace it. So we were kind of at that spot where it was time to make the decision. We've been talking about this for a couple of years, and we finally got it into the 2023 budget. The intent was to get it done Q1 of 2023, and so that's why it's an independent project from what Jim had, but just all the stuff that we're dealing with, we're still missing parts, so it pushed it out further, and we just installed it with what they had, and they'll continue to upgrade. The biggest change that you folks will see, well, the biggest improvement here is that hum. I don't know if you've ever talked to any community members, and they're watching these broadcasts, and they always talk about that hum. As far as earlier when I was talking to William, that is gone, so yay. But one of the problems or one of the things that you're not going to have any longer is the voting buttons at the dais. So the intent was always to go, we had a couple of years ago, we purchased the Civic Clerk software. That's how you guys get your packets and all of that stuff, and it's where we stream the live stream when it's working, which it's not tonight. But the goal is you'll be able to use that same software to do your votes, and then it just puts everything in one spot so that the community members, when they go online to look at it, they can see, oh, I want to see when that goofball Greg was talking about whatever and what they voted for, and they can just click on that, and it takes them directly to that part of the video. It shows, if there was any motions, any of that kind of stuff. So it's kind of bundling up the whole packet into a nice, presentable package. And it is going to reduce a lot of the work that Reseda and Lisa have to do as well. So anyway, to get that old stuff to work with the new equipment wasn't a possibility. You can buy the voting buttons from Crestron, but it didn't seem like a good investment for us to do because it was several $1,000s, and if we're planning on going this other route, something we can look at eventually if things don't work. But until then, Reseda's going to have to do roll call votes for now until we can get that other stuff worked out. Lisa will have more specifics on that as we kind of go through and kind of iron out the kinks. Ms. Bynum showed us some other issues that we have with the Civic Clerk stuff. So we'll get all that stuff ironed out in a good way, and then we'll present it to you folks and be here to help with all of that. But as far as, so that's the current project that we've had, and then the new project, there's going to be some AV stuff involved in what Jim's planning on doing later on this year as well. When they tear down this dais, we've got all the stuff in the rack back there that will handle all new monitors for you folks, and the microphones and that sort of stuff. It's all there kind of under the ground in the wall and those kind of things. So we tried to plan ahead on the existing project that we had to make sure that we're ready for any surprises when Jim kicks off his. So all of that stuff, nothing should change there too much other than just what you see on your desk. We are going to have one extra monitor, as you saw, with Jim's plans. So this
Right.
wall here, we're gonna mimic it over there, so we'll move that one with the Montrose All-American City. It'll move out a little bit more and it'll have another monitor. We'll try to match it as close as we can.
So these two walls will kind of mirror each other. You know, this will make that one match this one, and then there'll be a monitor just like that over here. And that All-American City logo will move over here onto this wall.
And we'll retain these two?
Yes. Yep. So we'll
Yeah,
just be adding
and
one.
the goal there is just to make it easier for everybody out here in the audience, or, you know, if we're sitting here at the table or at the dais, can see everything that, because there's a lot more presentations happening as well. One thing that will eventually work too is Jim's plugged into an HDMI cable currently that goes to the table and under the ground. Actually, I think it goes down to the basement and then back up to that thing. Wiring stuff in these old buildings is a chore, but we should be able to wirelessly connect to that new system. That was one of the big upgrades, to get rid of the hum and make it easier for people who want to do presentations to connect, because that's always been a challenge. So we continue to work out the kinks, and hopefully by the next set of meetings we will do a little bit better. But questions?
Any questions from anyone?
All right, then.
Excellent, thanks, Craig.
I guess just overall, schedule-wise, we'll be coming back to a work session with this as a recommendation on our award after we open bids. So probably 6 weeks from now, we'll have a recommendation for construction team.
Outstanding. All right.
We didn't really answer the question on,
Right.
is Zoom gonna work in Centennial Room for council meetings or community room?
So either room will work the same. So it's going to be, remember the good old days when we had the camera sitting on the trash can here? We'll
Yeah.
use that same setup wherever we go. So,
The benefits of high technology.
yeah, so that will, it won't make a difference if we're in Centennial Room or over at the community room, or, you know.
So is there a general consensus, because we're gonna be putting out some advertising very soon, to tell people where court's gonna be, council meetings? What's the general consensus for location?
The one question we had was the seating capacity in the different rooms. Do we know what the seating capacity is, community room versus Centennial?
They'll be very similar. So the new community room is 50 seats at a table. And that, you know, at table seating may be reduced a little bit because of, we would have to set up tables in front as kind of the dais. And they also don't necessarily need to be at a table, right? In here, the audience is not at a table. 50 is I would say a general number for the community room, and that's also doable in the Centennial Room as well. I think rarely do we have that many, you know. I think there's some council meetings that we do pack this room, but either one, the council or the Centennial Room or the new community room will have, I'd say, very similar seating capacity.
Logistically, what makes the most sense?
While you think about that, first, do the courts and the council meetings need to be in the same place? Or are those really two separate questions? And I think we just built this new community room. It would be really cool to use it. I mean, all things being equal, I think we built a community room so we could use it. So it'd be really fun to have council in there, but all things being equal.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to build a temporary dais in there, right? You wanted a temporary,
Well, it'd be nice to be elevated somewhat, just to be able to see out to the audience.
would that be big enough to?
But it could
hold
be just like a
council?
step, it doesn't have to be substantially higher.
I don't know if council, I mean, you guys may feel differently, but like, I've been on lots of boards where we aren't on a dais, and I feel like it would work fine for 3 months for us to be at tables. I do like them when they are skirted and you can't just see us cross our legs or kick each other or whatever. But,
Yeah, I was just thinking.
Yeah, they tell when you kick me, because I go, ow!
no, I just, you guys don't wear skirts, but it's nice sometimes if you
Yeah.
have. But,
If there's a dais on one end of the room now, if, that's gonna take up space, and then if we do council in another location, it's gonna change the dynamics and the way we seat everyone. So just wondering if the dais we build temporarily could be big enough to house the council. And
or does council really need a I don't think for 3
Well,
months
the
council
court needs
needs.
a
But the
dais.
court-
Court needs a dais,
Either way,
they're gonna have a
there's
dais either way.
Unless we do them in different places. Like, they want to set up court in the Centennial Room and they need a dais, and we don't need
They
a
want
dais.
community room.
They want the community room.
If we're building
And
one
the-
anyway, we can use it.
The other side of that coin is that we want to make sure that our extra spaces, if we're using one, we don't like tie up the other one at the same time, so that the community still has access to one of these rooms.
Mm-hmm.
So if we, to me, I like the idea of kind of using a one space, using court and council in one or the other, just because that way the utilization of the other space is still available. So I like the community room. When we walk through, we're still waiting to see what it looks like when it gets a little more finished, but it's,
Barbara, you mentioned community room.
Yeah, I mean, we build a cool community room, and if we need space for 3 months, it'd be fun. But
That's the reason I mentioned.
that's all things being equal.
That's why I mentioned logistically, I meant what it makes the most sense from the staff standpoint, logistically to handle it. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's a 3-month hiatus from here. It's no big deal. I'll be happy either place, quite frankly. So you guys tell us what you think makes the most sense from a staff standpoint.
I don't think logistically, I think it's the same either way. We've got the parking lot near both of those areas for the public to park, easy access. So either one, it's just preference of council, so right now we're hearing consensus of community room. What are your?
You know what? It doesn't make any difference to me. I'm here, I'm there, I can be anywhere. It's just, if
he's like a ninja.
if counselor here wishes it to be in the community room and there's another one there, I support the community room.
Is Doug still with us?
As long as I can find a parking spot
Yes,
close.
I'll reach out to Doug.
Doug and I, we kind of talked about it, and he kind of feels the same way. It doesn't make any real difference, but he, like I, want to make sure that one of the other spaces is available for public use, so we're not tying up 2 of our meeting spaces. All right, any other staff comments?
We're gonna talk about the city council budget meeting for 2023.
Oh, yeah,
Excellent.
thank you. I had a note and then I totally forgot about it, Shady, thank you.
Yeah, there's a small conflict.
I'm wondering if we can look at a different date for our budget meeting in the fall. I have a CML board meeting in Denver on Friday, September 9th, which makes it really hard to be here through the evening of the 8th. Even if I were to take a flight, which some people have said, look at that, I can't get there by then, driving or flying. So I'm just wondering how flexible we are on that September 8th meeting date.
I'm available any Friday to include Friday night. So whatever works, if there's another change, again, any Friday night would work for me, or day.
Do Fridays in general work better for you?
For me, yeah.
Fridays
Yeah.
work better?
Friday works well.
Because right now, I don't show anything on Friday, the 2nd of December, or September.
That is the Friday leading into Labor Day weekend, though.
Yeah, it
just
is.
as a FYI.
And I'm on vacation, sorry.
Ah, that's the important part.
You can have it without me if you'd like.
Sure, we can. The other option, because it's a longer meeting. I mean, the
That's
budget
all
retreat
day.
is an all-day event. So one of the things that we like to do is kind of keep all of our meetings kind of in the same week, so we're not overloading ourselves week to week to week. What does the 7th look like, September 7th?
Yeah, that would work. Does it work better, do you think, Shani, for you and staff to do it as an all-day meeting versus having it like Monday afternoon, the 19th, and Tuesday, the 20th? I mean, it's a long day of budget, which I know Bill loves. Is there any reason not to break it into 2 chunks?
No, I don't think so. I think in the past, we've just tried to keep it on one day for convenience sake.
I wonder if our counselors who have other full-time jobs would find it easier or harder to do 1 full day versus 2 half-days.
So
I think she's talking to.
You guys.
We used to do multiple days, and council asked us to change it to 1 day to streamline and get it all done at once.
Right.
We used to do multiple.
Yeah, for me, do it all in one day would work, because if I got to take off, because it's hard to start a project
Right.
in the afternoon, so you lose that whole day.
Okay.
Or vice versa, start it in the morning and pull off at noon, and
So how does the 7th work? Does anybody have a problem making the 7th of September
Which is a Wednesday?
Which is a
I'm still on-
Wednesday.
I'm still on vacation.
on
Sorry.
the 7th?
Yeah. My niece is getting married in Nashville.
That's cool.
The Labor Day weekend, so we won't be back in town. I was going to make it back on the 7th, but I won't be able to attend a meeting on the 7th.
21st,
I can do that 3rd week of the month, any day that week.
The week of the 12th?
The week of the 19th, right?
do
That-
we have a Mira meeting on the 21st on Wednesday? It's tentatively on my calendar.
At 2 o'clock. but
Yeah.
We can, that's one that's easy to move. We have advance notice.
And there's also the MEDC meeting at 4, and you're our primary on that, so. Well, what do you think about that?
That's a lot of, there's not time for them. There's not
Okay.
one of those meetings. So I think that's a big.
So like maybe the 21st?
Ann and I we have it on our calendar to go to the ICMA conference, but I was just talking to Janie this morning, I don't think we're gonna go. And I haven't touched base with Ann.
Okay. Would the 21st work for everyone for rescheduling our budget retreat?
Let me double check the staff calendars.
What day of the week is that, a Wednesday?
That's a Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
You call it a retreat, is it here, or do you go somewhere?
Usually we're over at the pavilion.
Oh, okay, so it's in town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not like we.
Treat sounds
leave.
really fancy, doesn't it? It mostly
No,
means
it's
an
at the
all-day
Broadmoor
budget
in Colorado
slog.
Springs, no?
Yeah.
Just check.
In that case, we're going over Labor Day
I'm kidding.
weekend. Right, so if the 21st works for everyone and seems to be kind of a mutually agreeable date, can we send out a calendar invite for people on that, and that change?
Doug gave you a thumbs up, I don't know if anyone was looking.
Yeah.
It's my week.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah, while we have him on the Zoom call,
Yeah.
yeah.
My week to host forum, but I can usually trade with somebody.
Okay. Does that work for everyone?
I think so. I think the only staff member that's on vacation, and she might be back, is Terry.
Calendar.
David Breeze is not rail hunting, but
Oh,
no one David Breeze.
Oh. He's gonna go up and get his elk in the first morning, so he'll be back.
Well, that might be the first morning.
Uh-oh.
Well, you get it up on the second morning. and-
Uh-oh, and you might have to wait till the second one.
Yeah, now, I mean, if I need to come down, it's not like I'm halfway across the state, I'm just up like that.
All right.
We could maybe work it where you're only here for your portion, too,
Yeah.
to make it easier.
All right, are there any other staff comments? Seeing none, we are adjourned.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
See you, Doug.
See you tonight.